Okay, so today I wanted to take a deeper look, more in depth at the image viewer, all of the icons and options that are available when viewing images in the Ramsoft application. So firstly, what we're going to do is we're going to open up this study, which is a single image of a chest. And I'm going to go through item by item each one of these icons at the left-hand side and at the top, just so we can get a full understanding of exactly what's going on here. I'll be starting here on the bottom left-hand side, working my way up and then across the top. So at the very bottom left-hand corner, what we can see is a flip and rotate set of options. If I click on this R, the backwards R, it will then reverse the image horizontally. It's a mirror option that allows you to flip the image that way. The icon just above is a rotate option, which if I click on will rotate the image 90 degrees. And to the right of it, we have a little drop-down arrow that allows us to either rotate by 90 degrees clockwise, or if we click on the rotate image settings, it will allow us to customize the angle and the direction that the image is rotated. Above that, we have the invert image, which inverts the negative color field, which will show us the image with the inverted colors versus normal. Above that, we have a reset all image operations icon. Anything that you change here, if you'd like to reset back to default, you just need to click on this and it will reset everything back to how it was. Obviously, if the image is grayed out, there's nothing then to reset. Just above that, we have the crosshair pointer. This can only be used in a CT or MRI, so I'm going to leave it for when I open a CT. But for now, we'll look at the probe image. Now, this tool is used to measure the Hounsfield units of an image. If I click on the probe, you see it becomes active. And now if I click and hold on the screen, you'll see there's a number showing there, which will allow you to see the pixel density for wherever my mouse cursor is pointing at that particular time. So we can see here that the number is quite low. We're likely seeing air within the lungs. And if we move to a bone area, you can see that the pixel density increases quite a bit, helping us to identify different components of the image. Then the next option we have is a unsharp option. If you click on this, it will show you this icon here on the main image. I'm going to click and hold, and now it shows you a little viewport. If I click and hold and drag down, it shows you by how much it will unsharpen. And if I go back up the other direction, it will undo what I've done. So if I let go of my mouse now, it will apply this to the entire image, which I'm going to do. I've just let go. It's now applied that to the entire image. To undo this, you can click on reset. The option just above that is to apply a sharpness enhancement. It will also open up a small sample window where I can drag up or down to undo. And once I let go of my mouse, it will then apply that again to the entire image. Above that, we have the on-off clamped window level. I will explain that shortly because it's tied to the window level setting. Above that, we have the hand icon, which is basically pan and scan. I'm just going to reset this. Pan and scan. So if we have zoomed in, it'll allow us to pan and scan. Zoom in, if you click on the middle mouse button and hold it in, it will allow you to zoom, whether I move up or down. It will zoom in. This is always active on the middle mouse button. Once I've then zoomed in, I can then use the pan and scan option to just move the image around. Let's go reset. And then just above that, we have the actual zoom in or out button. This will now turn the actual cursor into a zoom in and out function instead of having to hold the middle mouse button. If I click and hold and drag up and down, you'll see it will now zoom. The drop-down arrow to the right-hand side of the magnifying glass zoom icon will allow you to adjust some settings for the image. Either the image can fit to the window or fit to its width. So if the image was perhaps longer vertically, it would force the image to touch the sides of its width, thereby cutting the top and bottom off. Or if we fit to true size, it will force the image into its actual true size. You can also click on pixel size to zoom in until you see the pixels. We can manually change the magnifying intensity. The magnification glass, I'm just going to reset this. The magnifying glass will open up a small magnifying glass tool, which will allow you to hover the tool over the image to get a magnification level of whatever is selected here. So I can increase this to a certain size, and I can also, if I can get it, just change the size of the magnifying glass. And wherever I move now, this magnifying glass will magnify that particular region. Additionally, we can use a magnification marker, which would be a specific zone that is instead magnified. And it will stay in that zone. So if I move the zone around, you can see that the magnifying glass is pointing to whatever zone I have. And as I zoom in and out, the zone will stay where it is. Just above that, we have the window and level. Now, this is essentially the brightness and contrast. You see, now that I've clicked on this, it activates my cursor to have a WL black and white. If you don't select this, this option is always active on the right mouse button. If I click on the right mouse button and move slightly, you'll see that my icon has now turned into this. So you don't actually have to select that icon. It's always active on the right mouse button. I'm just going to select it for now. You'll see that if I click and hold and move upwards, it will remove the brightness. If I move downwards, it will increase the brightness. If I move to the right, it will remove contrast. And if I move to the left, it will increase the contrast. This allows you to customize the image for your own viewing. And the icon that we skipped over here just now, the clamp window, will, let me just reset first, will sort of limit how far the contrast and brightness can go. So if I have the clamp window selected, the icon selected, and I move up and down now, it only moves brightness very slightly because it's combined brightness and contrast together. It just changes the way that this function works. So you can use it either way, whichever way that you prefer. And remember, if you want to undo any changes, you can just click on the reset button. Now, the drop-down arrow to the right of the window level icon allows you to have an auto window option set, which will automatically adjust the settings. You may not like that one. There's a second option for sigmoid, which will also change it to a specified preset. However, you can, just going to undo that. You can click on window setting, which will allow you to customize this even further. So I can set the sensitivity to either be lower or higher. If it's lower, I'll have to move my mouse more to change the effect. And if it's higher, I'd have to move my mouse much less to have a greater effect. If we enable the window ROI, as I move, let's enable it, I'll show you. As I have selected the ROI option, it will do the same as the sharpness option. It will show you first a display box. Once you've changed it and let go of the mouse, it will then apply that to the entire image. You can also choose the direction of whether or not moving the mouse up would increase or decrease the brightness, or moving right and left would either change the contrast higher or lower. You can leave those custom if you'd like. And also at the top here, you can customize the actual numbers that you want this to change to. If you know what numbers you want to set, you can then set this. So if I change this, for example, to 1000 and 1800, and then we click on OK, it will have then slightly changed. It did slightly change. It's because this has limited it. Let's just do that again. I'm going to change this to 100 and change this to 600. Click on OK, and it's changed it to that level. Just going to reset. Okay, and the icon above that is a mix of a few different options. So we have zoom, pan and scan, and window level all mixed in one. So if I left click now, while with this option selected, it will pan and scan. This is now left click. If I right click, it will change window level. You see, we left the ROI option on, so it's now doing a display first, and when I let go, it will now revert to that. And if I scroll my mouse wheel now, it will then zoom in on wherever my cursor is pointing. See, if I aim the cursor up to this tag, it will zoom in to that tag. And correspondingly down to the bottom here, it will zoom in down to the bottom, wherever your mouse cursor is pointing at that time. So all three functions in one. The option just above that is to change or drag viewports around. Now, this white outline you see here, this is one viewport. This on the right-hand side would be a second viewport. Now, if I had made any specific changes, for example, and I need to move this viewport to the other side, or I need to move it to the left-hand side, you would select this tool, move the entire viewport to a different panel, and it would show there. Remember, this is not just moving an image to a new viewport, it's moving the entire viewport with whatever settings you've changed into a different section. Okay, and the next option up here at the top left, this option is always on. It allows you to scroll through frame sets. So if we have a CT, I will open one shortly. You can scroll the mouse wheel. It will scroll through frame sets, and all connected series will also scroll through at the same time, but I will show you that in the CT. The next icon to look at is this icon that looks like a compass. This is the Patient Explorer. Essentially, this button just either shows or hides the Patient Explorer. The Patient Explorer is this bottom section of the window here at the bottom. And this window is divided into three different sections, the Patient Explorer. So here on this side over here, what you can see is a list of all of the studies that belong to this particular patient. So any priors that this patient has done will appear here. And on the right-hand side, in this section, you will see the thumbnails for each image that was taken for each of the corresponding studies of all of the priors as well. So you would see, 2, 3, 4, 5 different priors. Clicking on any of those priors would then open up a corresponding set of thumbnails here at the bottom. You can then click and hold and drag any of those prior images up into the main viewport windows in order to make comparisons or to just view those images if you like. In the bottom left-hand corner, you will see the clinical notes that were added into this particular study that you are currently viewing, and currently there are no clinical notes showing for this one at the moment. So clicking on the Patient Explorer icon will remove that, allowing you to see the images quite a bit larger. What I'm going to do actually is just move this back to the left. I'm going to just reset, and there we go. Right, so clicking on the Patient Explorer will then open that up again. Right, so next what we have is this icon at the top here, which is the measure distance icon. This will allow you to measure a specific distance of whatever you are actually trying to measure. Now, firstly, there is a calibration option. You can see that this X-ray, this image, has come with a calibration measurement ruler here on the right-hand side. So if I click and hold now and drag down, I can measure. You see, it does say that this is 11 centimeters. You can see at the top there, and it should be 11 centimeters, meaning that this doesn't need calibration at the moment. But if it did, I could then just say the amount that I've just measured is 11 centimeters and click on OK, which will calibrate the actual tool. Once you're happy with that, you can then go ahead and measure whatever you like. It will show you the centimeters from where you started clicking, and you can measure the entire image, whatever you prefer. Okay, so the next icon we have is the Measure Cob Angle icon. This will allow you to measure certain angles. You just need to make two lines. It will measure the angle between the two lines. So for example, if I were to draw a line here and draw the second line here, you see it will measure the angle between the two lines that I have made. Now, once you've placed this, you can move them around to say, I would like to change this to whatever you need it to be. It will then measure the angle that you have there. You can also drag the entire thing somewhere else and adjust each point as needed. I'm just going to press on Escape to remove it. Okay, so next, let's take a look at how to get the estimated size of the heart. The next icon up here at the top is the Measure Cardiothoracic Ratio. Now, once I click on this, what I'm going to do is draw two lines, one from the left side to the right side of the heart, and then one from the left side to the right side of the diaphragm, and it will give us the percent ratio that the heart size is compared to the diaphragm. Now, I know my lines may not be accurate, but this is just to demonstrate the purposes of this tool. So we've got a line from left to right, we've got another line from left to right, and it shows us that based on the lines I've drawn, the heart is about 42% the size of the entire diaphragm. And moving on to the next tool in our list, we have the region of interest. Draw an elliptical region of interest. Now, just to the right of this, you have a little drop-down arrow. This allows you to just change the shape. So we start off with ellipse. We can do rectangle, circle, and freehand. So I'm just going to stick with, let's do rectangle. Why not? So you'll see that the shape now changes to rectangle, and I can draw a rectangle region of interest on my image. Now, essentially what this allows us to do is something very similar to the probe tool, which allows us to measure the Hones units or pixel intensity of any area that we're aiming the cursor at. But now we can do it with a region of interest, and it will generate a histogram for us to view. So essentially what we'll do is we're going to draw a region of interest around a specific area. I'm just going to leave it here for now. So what we can see here on the left-hand side of the square is darker, so it will be lung tissue and air. In the middle we have the spine and some ribs, and on the right-hand side also just a little bit of lung tissue and air as well. So what we're going to do now is right click inside our region of interest that we've created, and we're going to go to the ROI histogram. So this generates a histogram based on the area inside our region of interest. And what this will do now is give us a basic understanding of what's inside the area that we have selected based on pixel intensity and darkness versus light. So essentially what we can see here on the x-axis is the lower we are, the darker it is, and the higher we are, the lighter it is. You can see that in the gray scale, on the left side is darker and the right side is lighter, meaning that there is, in this case, a lot more darker area than there is lighter area, as reflected by our selection. And what we can see on the y-axis going up here is how many pixels have this much intensity. So we have quite a few pixels that are showing on the darker side and much fewer pixels showing on the lighter side. And as we can see, we do have more dark area selected than light area. The mean number that you'll see on the right-hand side over here will be the general or average pixel intensity in the ROI, and the standard deviation would be the spread or variability of pixel values in the ROI. A higher deviation would mean that there's more contrast between the structures inside the ROI. So what I'm going to do as an example is I'm just going to change this up. We'll just put more darker area so that mostly dark area is inside our ROI. Let's generate another histogram. And now we can see that most of our pixels, or almost all of our pixels, are reflecting very, very dark area. So we have a great amount of dark area reflected in our ROI. And if we move it to the lighter side down here, and then create another ROI, we can see that the pixel intensity has greatly moved towards the light side. So we have quite a few pixels that are showing on the lighter side of the spectrum. And you can see also that the mean is quite a lot higher, meaning that our average pixel intensity is very high. So the next tool we have available is the shutter tool. The little drop-down arrow will allow you to change the shape again, so we can choose rectangle, circle, or freehand. We'll just stick with the rectangle for now. And what you would use this for is sometimes some images come with a lot of noise, bright backgrounds, or things that are distracting you from looking at the specific area that you need. So once we've clicked on the shutter tool, what we can then do is just draw a square area, and it will block out the rest of the image, allowing us to focus on the specific area we need to focus without, the distracting, blinding light or whatever other noise there might be in the image. We can then drag this box around to wherever we need it to be. We can also change the shape. I'm going to just press on delete and it will go back to where it was. We can do the same with a circle or with a freehand shutter as well. Okay, so let's move on to the next tool. It's actually a combination of two tools. What we have is the marker point of interest and add text annotation. They do normally go together. So the first thing you'll see is this little box over here will allow you to enter annotation text. So if we type in something, I'm just going to say test, clicking on the annotation button will allow you to add whatever we've typed there onto the image itself. Now if I right click on that, I can then change whatever I've typed. I can add an arrow or delete it. Now the arrow that you would add would be the same as this arrow over here for marking a point of interest. So if I click on this now, I can then create an arrow to mark a point of interest. The arrow header will point to wherever you started clicking first. It will then add the text that is typed over there. That's why these icons normally go together. So I'm just going to not keep making more and more, just delete those. So now I've marked a point of interest and I've said that this is test. I mean, it could say something realistic like pathology or whatever, but essentially you'll be marking points of interest of special note for your report and for the referring doctors to see. Now, what I actually should have mentioned previously is that these measurements and the circles of interest and the points of interest, all of those things that you put on the image, as well as changing the contrast and brightness, etc., stay within the image. When you finish reviewing and save the study, the referral doctor will then be able to see all of these markings on the image when they go and view it. So for example, if I put a ruler marker here to show this is 30 centimeters, and I make a angle measurement for this, for whatever, it doesn't really matter. And I mark a circle of interest over there. All of these markings will stay in the image when you finish reviewing the study, allowing the referral doctor to actually see this as well. The only thing that doesn't show to the referral doctor is the cardiothoracic ratio. This one does not reflect on the rapid results portal for the referral doctor to see, but the rest of them do. So what you're going to see now is I'm actually going to close this study. I'm going to open it up again, and you'll see that all of my changes have remained. Additionally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the referral portal quickly. This is the view that the referral doctor will see. So I'm just going to drag the browser over, and this is now the referring portal that the referral doctor will see once they've logged in to view the image. You can see that all the markings that we've made are still viewable here, along with the annotation and the line, and you can see that it corresponds directly to what we've done over there. Right, so essentially that's to mark a point of interest and add a text annotation. One thing to also remember is that once I've closed the study and therefore saved all of these things in the image, I'm no longer able to go to undo them by clicking on the undo button, because once I've opened the study, this is now essentially the image's default state. So in order to remove them, you would have to individually select them and then delete them all, because now this, you see, if I delete this and delete this, if I now go and reset all image operations, it will revert it back to how it was at the point when I opened the study. So I saved them by closing it. When I reopen it, this is now the default state. So in order to remove these, I'm just going to individually click on them and delete them all. The next tool we have available in the list is the plumb line tool. This will allow us to draw a plumb line from wherever we click all the way vertically down to the bottom of the image. So we can use this to check if everything is aligned correctly. However you wish to use them, this tool allows you to draw the plumb lines. The plumb lines also stay on the image so that the referral doctor will see these lines in the image should you leave them here. In order to carry on with the explanation of all the tools and objects we have in the viewer, I've changed over now to a CT brain, and we can go over some of the objects and tools that we skipped over, as well as some of the other ones that we still need to explain. Firstly, let's take a look at the top here to the Setup Layout Multiple Viewports. This will allow you to choose how many viewports are available when viewing all of the images. So currently I have 6 different series here, and only 4 viewports are available at the moment. So if I click on this block over here, you see it will select all 6 of them, allowing me to then see all series at the same time. You can choose however many you would like to view. You'll note that there is a current limit of 4 by 4, but if I click on that and then go back, it will just expand the limit again, and it will expand the limit again to however many you want to view at the same time. So I'm going to go back down to 6, and here we can see all 6 of our series at the same time. The icon right next to it, the layout within a viewport, will allow you to view multiple images inside a single viewport. Now remember that each one of these blocks is a single viewport that contains a single image. So if I change down to 2 now, and then I use this icon to say that I would like to view 2 images inside a single viewport, then we have in this viewport now 2 images. So this is one viewport which contains 2 images, and this is one viewport that contains 1 image. And if we now start to expand this, you can then see multiple images inside a single viewport versus, single images inside single viewports. You can customize this to view however you would like to view them. The next icon is a link icon. This will allow us to link all of the series together. They are automatically linked though, however. So once I begin scrolling through one series, and my mouse is over here, it will scroll through all of them, showing me where in the series I am according to the slices on different views. Scrolling down, and my mouse wheel is currently scrolling up to show me that the series are linked together. The next icon in the list is the View Protocol settings. This will allow you to adjust or save the settings that we've adjusted here for the viewport windows and how many images are displayed at once. It's mostly to do with that. I can essentially save the current settings as it is so that the next time I open a CT, it will also display like this. You can view the current protocols and make slight adjustments, or refresh the protocols to, if you've made changes, to go back to how it was in the beginning. It's mostly to do with layout and what opens first. If you need to make any changes, you can look through there. However, it depends on the user whether or not you would want to make any adjustments there. The next icon is to toggle the overlays. So you can see on each of these images, we have dates and times and a whole bunch of words. If we click on this icon, it will then hide all of that information, allowing you to see the image on its own without the distraction of any of those if they are distracting you. And you can also select individual things to hide or show. If you'd prefer not to see some and only some others, you can adjust those with the check marks over there. Right, so next we have the multiplanar reformatting button, as well as the Cine toolbar. Let's just do the Cine toolbar first because it's a bit easier. So you see, as I scroll through the image with my mouse wheel, it goes up and down as I scroll. The Cine toolbar will allow you to do that automatically. So you can see that it's currently playing backwards, going up. It will loop, meaning that once it gets to the top, it will then restart and go back up again. I can pause it, or I can change the speed as well. Let's say we wanted to go forward. I'm going to change the speed to fast. And instead of loop, I want it to bounce, so that once it gets to the bottom, it's then going to go back up again. So loop will go down and then start at the top again and then go down again. Bounce, it will scroll to the bottom and then go back upwards. And scroll once, it will then just stop once it gets to the bottom. And that from the Cine toolbar up there. So I'm just going to pause, close, and go back. Right, so the next one we have is the multiplanar reformatting. This is not available on every image or every series. You'll see if I click on this one, it's no longer available. It has to be on a series that allows it. So I'm going to click on this series. I'm going to click on the multiplanar reformatting button to allow this to process. It does take a bit of time. Just going to skip ahead quick. All right, so now it's processed this series with the multiplanar reformatting. I'm going to double click just to make it the main series that we can view now, just so that we can focus on this particular one at the moment. Right, so I'm just going to go briefly over some of the options you have available here. You can see that there's green lines, red lines, and yellow lines that split across the series. If I click and hold and drag any of these lines, you can see that on the one side it is keeping with the slices depending on where I am in this scan. And I can move the yellow one up to this level, and then that one will stay there. I can then move the red one, which will show a different slice on the left-hand side, depending on where I am on the right-hand side. You can also move the blue one, which would be vertical, and it will show you on the left top side where it is moving in correspondence with the slices on the entire series. And you can leave it like that. This just helps you to get a better understanding of the position of where you are currently viewing. If I right-click, I get a menu of a few options. Now, essentially, you can just close the MPR and go back to the normal viewing. You can do full screen on whichever one you've selected. So if I click on that now, it will show the full screen of that one. You can right-click and go back to the 2x2 layout. We can do volume rendering. We can change the view of whichever block we've selected to axial, coronal, or sagittal. It's currently on sagittal. If I change to axial, you'll see that it appears there. You can go to coronal or sagittal again. We can also activate maximum intensity projection, minimum intensity projection, or average intensity projection as well. Drag scrolling is on by default. This is what allows me to scroll my mouse wheel and move through the entire series like this. We can also create a path. This will allow us, if tracing blood vessels, to create a path along the way and also to label the path that we have created. We can show oblique control, which opens up this circular wheel type icon, which allows us to rotate the views even more than what we had before. We can capture the current image to take a picture of this particular slice, the way that we've moved it around. We can show thumbnail window, which will show up here at the top. We can also derive a series with this view, or we can use the wizard to help us derive a new series from the set that we've got here. Window and level will then again be the brightness and contrast options that we've seen before. I highly recommend that you play around with this to get a more familiar view of how everything works. Hands-on, I feel, is actually the best approach for this. I'm now going to close the MPR and go back to the main viewing window, and then just expand this to view all 6 series again. And now that we're back in the main viewing window, we'll just carry on with the last few icons. And the first one being the Create Key Object document. What this will do is essentially take a snapshot of a particular slice and then save it down here in the thumbnail so that that particular slice can be called up again. So let's say we want to look at a particular slice. Let's take one, for example. I'm going to double click on this to open it. We're just going to scroll down to any random section. How about over here? All right. And then what I'm going to do is click on the Create Key Object tool. Now this just opens up the repository for key objects. Now in order to create a key object, what I'm going to do is double click on the image here in the background. It will then add this image as a key object. I'm now going to save this. So once it's saved, it will then go back out of the series that I was in. And you'll see here in the bottom right in the thumbnails, we now have an extra image added to this, this exam. So we do have the 6 series plus our extra key image. This image can now be called up, just going to close that. This image can now be called up on the fly as a particular snapshot of a slice. Maybe there was something in this particular image that we wanted to annotate. I could have put a, a particular point of interest with an annotation or circled point of interest, and then taken a snapshot of that and then just saved it into the exam as an example of a particular thing we need the referring doctor or someone to see when referencing our reports. And you can essentially save any number of key object documents if you need to. Moving on to the next tools, these two allow us to create voice notes and dictation. However, this is not the way that we will be reporting into an actual report template. This is more for creating dictations into an exam that will then be transcribed later by someone else. So if you need to record a voice note, you will use this, and then the transcriptionist will then listen to the voice note and then transcribe the report if that is the workflow that's needed. Beyond that, we have the document icon. This will open up the documents portion of the examination. Usually this is where the referral notes or patient documents are stored. It's where the report will also be saved. If for whatever reason when opening a study, if the reporting module does not open, clicking on this will then manually open up that module as well. The next tool we're going to take a look at is this tool that says email images. It does not actually email the images. What it does is it will email a link to view the images. Actually, it will email them 2 links. One link will say the rapid results version, and the other link will be the Power Reader version. Power Reader version is obviously the one that is installed. They would need to already have an account in order to view those images, because once they click on either link, it will then ask them to log into the platform. Once they then log in, they will be taken to view the images. So if you have another doctor with which you would like to liaise or confer, you could then email them a link to these images. They could then click on the link, view the images, and you could correspond with them if needed. The next icon we have is the document importer. This is the tool that will allow us to insert more documents into the study. Normally the radiographers use this tool to insert the referral note or anything like that, patient documents, patient IDs. If you would need to use this tool, clicking on this will allow you to search for the document on your computer. Clicking on this icon will allow you to scan the document immediately from your scanner to appear here. And also to just make sure that you have the right type of document selected that you would be importing, if it's a referral note or screening or anything like that. Once the document's been imported, you can click on the Save Disk. It will then save that document into the study. And the last icon we'll be looking at is the print images icon. So there's 2 ways you can print. You can either print to a Windows printer or to a DICOM printer. I currently don't have a DICOM printer installed or connected, so it's not giving me that option. But if you did, you could just click on DICOM print instead of Windows print. They function the same way. Obviously the DICOM printer will print on film and the Windows printer will print on paper. There is just one thing to remember here when printing, and it is confusing for some people, but essentially what we'll be looking at is the rows and columns. Now by default it's set to 3 and 2. The way that this works is it will now divide the page, one A4 page, into 3 rows. So horizontally it will be split into 3 sections, and columns will be vertical, so there'll be 2 columns, so there'll be 2 columns, there'll be a line down the middle. Okay, I've just decided to illustrate this quickly using paint, so please forgive my crude drawings, but I just want to get the point across as simply as possible. If you try and print with 3 rows and 2 columns, essentially what you're doing is splitting the A4 page into 3 different rows going left to right, and 2 different columns going top to bottom. So here we have 3 rows and 2 columns. So if you tried to print one singular image with these settings, your image would print over here in this small little space. And you would wonder, why on earth is my image printing so small? It's because you've divided the page into 3 rows and 2 columns. Essentially with this, what you would want is to print 6 smaller images. If you adjust this to print with 1 row and 1 column, essentially then what you would have is the entire page available, because the entire page acts as 1 row left to right and 1 column top to bottom, and your image would print on the entire page, one singular image. Just for further explanation, if we did divide it into 2 rows and 1 column, we would just split the page like this. Now we have 2 rows going left to right, 1 solid column going top to bottom, being the whole page, and your image would print in the top half, your second image would print in the bottom half. And that's how the rows and columns work, and it works the same in the DICOM printing as well. The next tool I quickly want to take a look at is one of the tools that we skipped over well at the beginning of this video, was the crosshair pointer tool, which would only work in a CT or an MRI. So let's take a look at that now quickly. I'm just going to expand this back to view all the series. All right, so if I go and click on the crosshair tool and then click on any one of these series at any point in the slice, you'll see that it will create a crosshair there. It will then adjust the other linked series to show you where in those series the crosshair is actually pointing. So you can see if I click and hold and drag this crosshair, it will move across all the series at the same time, showing me exactly where I am on the other slices in the other series, exactly where the crosshair is pointing. This helps you to pinpoint specific areas that you can see across each linked series. All right, so that's where we're going to leave it for now. We've gone through all of the options that are available here in the viewing window. I hope that you have learned something more than you did before. Thank you very much for watching.